All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. So for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Dr. Kendall, Dr. Kendall Price. I am the CEO of Elevate Marketing Solutions. We're a full service digital marketing agency specific to the chiropractic niche, helping chiropractors grow and scale their practice. And I've had the pleasure of knowing our guest on here today for darn near a decade now. And he's one of my close friends, and he's a mentor of mine that I truly look up to when it comes to running a chiropractic practice at a very, very, very high level. Dr. Josiah has been in practice since I believe 2016, and since then he has grown his practice to 5.5 million, and I believe it's even more this year in collections. And so there's a lot of knowledge that is going to be gained from this. And he also owns a company that helps chiropractors to understand their numbers better. And so with that being said, we're going to jump into some of the things that we want to go through here today and talk about what it is that allows a practice to be able to scale in that direction. Because I think that every single one of us, when we understand our numbers and we understand what we can do from a marketing perspective and understanding our numbers, it allows us to grow and scale at a rate that not very many in the profession have done. And I don't know anyone who has grown their practice like Dr. Josiah. So, Dr. Josiah, I am going to kick it off to you and let you get started with some of the content that you wanted to go through here today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the introduction. Appreciate the kind words. Yeah. And just so you guys know a little bit, about myself, like Dr. Kendall said, 2017, graduated from chiropractic school and then opened my clinic just 4 months after that. Already had over 400 prepaid appointments before my first day open, over 1 million in collections. My first year, over 2 million. My second year, third year in practice was COVID. And so that's where I had to figure out, how do I grow? How do I get to the next level? And that's one of the key things I'm going to talk about tonight, which I think is the number one missing key in our entire profession, to scaling, getting to the next level. So the year after that, I went to 5.5 million in 1,800 square feet. And then, as Kendall said, we're actually on pace for $6.6 million in our one location in Iowa. Literally, I'm in my clinic right now, and within 100 yards, there's 4 chiropractors, 5 chiropractic clinics within, or 5 chiropractic colleges within 4 hours of here. So no matter where you're at, no matter what style of practice you do, you can be successful, and it comes down to some key fundamentals. So that's what I want to go through tonight, is really my top 3 overall fundamentals of how I scaled, my clinic to over $5 million in just 4 years right out of school. And so just so you know about me, I didn't grow up, with a silver spoon in my mouth. I never got handed anything. I'm actually one of 9 kids, grew up most of my life on food stamps. Nicest car my family ever owned was $500. Usually had smoke coming out of the engine when my mom would pick us up for school. I actually started working in 3rd grade. I started waking up at 2:30 a.m. every morning, got my mom to deliver newspapers, and I already worked for 4 hours by the time I went to 3rd grade. I bought all my own clothes. Growing up, I bought my own bike. And so anything that I, wanted, or, above and beyond, was really all on me. Most of my clothes were all from Goodwill, I think, until I graduated chiropractic school. Most all of my outfits were from Goodwill. So that's just, I just want you to know, no matter who you are, no matter where you're at, no matter where you come from, I just want you to understand what's possible. And I think that's really what I want to start off with, is just the overall framework or mindset on how you view success and how you view all these different areas to grow and scale and get to the next level. And so I was actually really fortunate to have a conversation with a billionaire. And I asked him, what are the top things that separate a billionaire from a regular person? And he said 3 things. He said, number 1, he said, billionaires are very, very comfortable with risk. Number 2, he said, mindset, why they do things is more important than what they do, which is something I think that's really big in our profession: the purpose, the why, the passion, chiropractic belief. And then the third one is they think bigger. And I think that's one of the biggest areas that chiropractic profession doesn't do. Lots of people have poverty mindset. They think, this is how it is. This is how it's always going to be. And then also the risk categories. We went to school to be doctors. We didn't go to school to run businesses. And so a lot of business things can sound and seem very, very risky if you don't understand the data and the numbers behind it. And so I want you guys to have a better understanding, behind some of the data and the numbers after this call tonight, so you can take what you view as a high risk, high reward opportunity and turn that into a low risk, high reward opportunity. So three things, really the three things over the years, people have always asked me, how did you do it? How did you grow so fast? How did you get to the next level? How did you get to 1 million, 2 million, 5 million in such a small space at such a fast pace right out of school? And so I've distilled it down to three core things: structure, team, my mindset around team, and then also my mindset around marketing. And so the first one I want to talk about is structure. And that's why I alluded to earlier. I think this is literally the #1 missing piece in the entire chiropractic profession. Most chiropractic clinics know about SOPs, day ones, day twos, reported findings, table talk, retention, verbiage for the phone call, verbiage for the front desk, SOPs, standard operating procedures. But what most clinics do not have is a structure and a rhythm of tracking KPIs, key performance indicators, as well as understanding the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges within your business, and having a rhythm around those KPIs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges to always be constantly improving on what is the #1 priority or focus of the business to constantly grow. And so I tell doctors all the time, if I could say one thing, if you could write one thing on a sticky note right now while you're on this call, watching this recording, write this one thing down and say, hey, what is the #1 priority or bottleneck that I need to focus on today that's going to have the largest impact on driving the revenue and profitability of my business? What is that #1 priority or bottleneck? And so I talked about earlier, during COVID, my 3rd year in practice, I had a lot of free time on my hands. The strategies that we were using, people weren't coming in the office as often. So I said, I got to figure out, I'm at $2 million after 2 years. I want to get to the next level. There's not many people in our profession doing more than that. I started looking outside of this profession. And what I found is I realized and I learned what all the top fastest growing companies in the world utilize is a structural framework to grow and scale very rapidly. You guys have probably all heard of tech companies that seemingly overnight are created and turn into billion-dollar companies. And how do they do it? It's a framework of constantly evaluating what I just said earlier: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. What is the top thing that they can focus on? And so there's actually a whole book that chronicles this. It's called The Lean Startup. And this guy broke down how these tech companies, they use a process called agile methodology, and they operate on what are called 2-week sprints. And literally every single 2 weeks within these businesses, they evaluate what is the top things that we need to focus on in the next 2 weeks that's going to have the single largest impact on the business. And they are willing to pivot in any direction and change their business plan, change their model, head in any new direction that is going to be the best solution for their business, and focus on that for the next 2 weeks. And then 1 week into that sprint, they reevaluate the entire business and say, what is the top thing that we need to focus on that's going to have the single largest impact on the business? Because there's so many things that you get overloaded with, and the urgent starts to overtake the important. I tell my staff it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And so if you don't constantly have a process and a rhythm and a structure to evaluate what's working, what's not working, you're going to be drowning very, very rapidly. You're going to plateau. You're going to stagnate. You're not going to grow. You're not going to get to the next level. And the great thing is you can apply this to all areas of your life. I don't really like talking about, my other things outside of chiropractic, but just so you guys understand what's possible, I have over 70 Airbnbs. I have over 600,000 square feet of commercial real estate. I have 2 farms, one that can hold up to 4,000 head of cattle. I converted a hotel into a 35-unit multifamily. I have a heavy equipment leasing company. I'm also married. I got a 9-year-old, and 4-year-old, and a 10-month-old. I was literally at coaching my son's football practice 30 minutes ago before this call. I'm the head coach. I have 8 assistant coaches and 44 players, and I'm the head coach for 3 sports teams. So the only way you can have that, your faith, your family, and all these things, is with structure. And so that's what I realized, like, during that year of COVID. And so that's what I want to break down for you guys a little bit more in depthly, is understanding you need to have these rhythms in place of what are your goals for the year? How do you distill them down into 90-day focuses or goals that you want to work on? And then what are your rhythms on a weekly basis to evaluate how is your progress and what pivots do you need to change as a result of your KPIs, your key performance indicators, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges in all the areas of your business, right? Because we have marketing, sales, finance, customer service, clinical, IT, There's all these different areas of your business. And that's why it's so difficult when you're the doctor, you're the owner, you're the head of sales, you're the head of marketing, you're the head of finance, you're a spouse, you're a parent, you're trying to wear all these different hats, and you wonder why you're not able to grow and scale because you're so spread thin. And to be able to do all those things and continue to grow, you have to establish these rhythms of structure to continually evaluate what does your data say, and based on that data and the feedback from your team members, what do you need to focus on continuously to constantly be growing and getting to the next level. So on a high level, that structure, on a action step, you need to have rhythms yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, before every shift that you have established in place to evaluate what are your KPIs, what are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges, how are your team members performing, do you have regular performance reviews, do you have proper core values? I'm going to talk about that with my next topic of team. And then what are your targets, your goals? Are you on track with your goals? Are you off track with your goals? What pivots, changes do you need to make? What do you need to focus on from a training perspective? We literally close our entire clinic down on Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. every single Tuesday just to do our team meetings and our team trainings. That's how important this is. This is, how you block off that time to work on the business. So many times doctors talk about, I'm only working in the business. I can't become the CEO. I don't have the time to work on the business. You need to block it off, and you need to get your team members involved. They are a huge aspect of giving feedback of what's working, what's not working. You need to be able to assign them accountability and leadership and ownership over different areas of your business, whether it be show up rate or sign up rate or retention rate, right? All these very, very important data points. Someone needs to be accountable. You can't have multiple people, in charge, because then no one's accountable. There needs to be one person, that's in charge for these specific areas of your business, and you need to have rhythms of structure to constantly evaluate how to make them better, how to get to the next level. One of my favorite things I ever heard was that if you improve 1% every single day, you're 37 times better in 365 days. 1% better every day, 37 times better. So essentially nobody is getting 1% better, because most businesses, most people never go 37 times better in a year. So that's to me is a very low goal, to get 1% better every day. But if you can establish a consistent routine and a structure of evaluating what's working, what's not working, have rhythms to do that, assign proper accountability, have the KPIs, then this is going to be the foundational level for you to scale and get to the next level in your business. Wherever you're at now, to get to the next level, to do it with consistency, you need structure. And so that's what I always say. To me, the definition of how to be success, on repeat, is taking the correct actions with consistency. That's how you have long-term success. And you need to have these rhythms or structure to constantly be evaluating what those things are and how to focus on them to continue growing to the next step. Now, I know in application that's a lot. I covered a lot in a short amount of time for structure. And so we actually have an entire vault of resources I'll put in the chat for everybody if they want to access some of those things, if you want to dive deeper on any of these topics. The next one I want to talk about is mindset around team. This is absolutely massive, because your team is your number one expense. At Lucra, we talk all about the perfect P&L, and always the number one expense on any chiropractor's P&L is their payroll, right? The cost of your team. And so at the end of the day, you need to shift your mindset on team. Team is part of the HR department, and HR stands for human resources. And so what you need to realize is humans are our number one resource, right? We always think of the top resources in the world: gold, oil, silver, but humans are by far and away the most limited, highest valuable resource you could ever have, especially in our business model. We're a service-based business. When someone comes into your clinic and they get a service and they walk out, they don't walk out with a new purse, a new watch. They don't walk out typically with a tangible product. Some people sell equipment or supplements, right? But for the most part, they're walking out with a feeling. They're walking out with the difference on the inside that they can't touch, that they can't hold, that they can't see. And so the importance of people in our business model is to a much higher, greater level than most all other types of businesses. Our people have a higher value than most all other businesses. And we need to recognize that based on the style of business that we're in, a service-based healthcare profession. All right. And so the number one bottleneck to scaling, to growing, to getting to wherever you want to be, to getting to the next level is always going to be your people. That's going to be the number one bottleneck, no matter what, right? You're not going to have enough people, or you're not going to have good enough people. And typically it's number two, not good enough, because the difference between a C player and an A player, might only be $2 an hour, maybe $4 an hour. Multiply that times 2,080 hours worked a year. That comes out to only $4,000 to $8,000 more dollars to go from a C player to an A player. And if you understand the lifetime value of a client, most doctors that I talk to at minimum have a lifetime value typically of at least $2,000 to $4,000. Most people have way higher lifetime values than that. And so if you're talking about to go from a C player to A player is only going to be a difference in between 2 and 4 patients staying under care or signing up for care in your office, then you realize how stupid it is to not treat your employees like the highest resource, like gold, like diamonds, like platinum, and reward them, train them, invest in them, and help them grow and get to the next level. Because like I said, the problem typically isn't not enough. It's typically not good enough. And so I talked about earlier with structure, we literally have a 7-hour block on Tuesdays minus 1 hour lunch. We have 6 hours of team meetings and team trainings every single week. We're constantly evaluating what are the top things we need to get better at. Do we need to generate more referrals? We need to train on it. Do we need to generate more reviews? Do we need to improve our show up rate? Do we need to improve our sign up rate? Do we need to improve our retention? What are the areas that we need to do to improve our collections? Okay, then let's train on it. What are the SOPs, like I talked about earlier, what a lot of chiropractors do a great job of? There's lots of fantastic coaching, management companies, all around in our profession. There's no shortage of coaches in our profession. If you want to get better at all those different aspects, there are plenty of resources to do that. But it's not a matter of resources, it's a matter of action. And so like Dr. Kendall said right on the beginning, I don't want you as a result of this call, just take a lot of notes and say, hey, that was really cool. I'm inspired, by that Josiah guy, what he did. I want you to come away with tangible action steps from this call that you can actually implement tomorrow in your business, next week, that can have a tangible impact on driving the revenue and profitability of your business. All right. So team, if you view them as assets, not as liabilities, then you're going to hire ahead of need. You're going to hire to grow, not when you grow. Because if you wait till you grow and then hire, then you're going to have burned out team members. You're going to have frustrated people, right? You grow because of your team. You don't grow and then find team members to help you. That's how you grow. That's how you get to the next level. Your biggest plateau you will ever have is going to be your team. Most doctors think it's your space. Like I said, we did $5.5 million in 1,800 square feet. The size of your space is not your bottleneck for 99% of doctors. And so you have to invest in your team. Like I said, trainings is massive. If a case manager, or whoever does your sign-up rates has a 10% higher close rate, they're going to pay for their salary time and time again. We had a case manager that we did the math. He was about 10% lower than our other provider that was doing day twos. We did the math. If he had the same sign-up rate as our other person doing day twos, we would have collected additional $400,000 in revenue if he had the same sign-up rate as the other one. And guess what? He was making about $70,000. So we had a net loss of $330,000 from one team member, right? If your doctors that you have are not doing a great job of retention, the amount of people that are going to drop out of care, the people that are going to sign up for care, if you don't have rock star front desk team members that don't provide an amazing culture, atmosphere, and experience for all the patients that come in, people aren't going to sign up. People aren't going to show up. People aren't going to stay under care. And the difference, like I said, could be $2. It could be $4. It's pennies on the dollar for the impact and the value that team members bring. So again, change your mindset from team members. They're not bank draining liabilities. They're income producing assets, and they should be, treated as that. And so I talked a lot about structure, but you need to have the rhythms of training. You need to also have the core values. And if you don't have core values, you can go on my chiropractic clinic's website, verohealthcenter.com. If you want to look at our core values, feel free. But first and foremost, you need to have what your core values of your business are, because there's no seat within your organization if someone doesn't first have alignment with core values. We always talk about right person, right seat. The right person is first and foremost lined up with core values. If that don't have alignment with your core values, there's no seat for no matter how talented they are. Okay, they have alignment with core values. Then you need to understand what is the primary skill, purpose, and KPIs of that seat that they're going to sit in to track and measure how successful they are. Right? So the primary skills of a front desk team member, right? They need to be outgoing. They need to be good at multitasking. They need high levels of awareness. You might want them to be bubbly. They probably should be good at answering questions or objections or handling with difficult people, right? Their purpose is to provide high quality of care, to generate referrals, to generate reviews, to take payments. Their KPIs that they're measured on, could be reviews, referrals, show up rate, right? And so every single position within your organization, same core values, but then each of them has a unique primary skills that you're trying to hire for, primary purpose that they're delivering from a subjective manner, and then KPIs or key performance indicators that you're tracking from an objective standpoint to say that this person is an A, a B, or a C player. All right. The next thing about team is employee engagement. You have to have ways that people are a part of your organization. You have this grand vision of what you want, and you created a business. And then you start hiring these people and you say, hey, this is the vision. If they don't have alignment with your vision, or if they can't accomplish their own vision and their own dreams, utilizing your company as a vehicle, then they're not going to last long. And so you need to help understand what is their vision, what do they want to accomplish, what are their personal, professional, and financial goals for the next 1, 3, and 5 years, what is their favorites. On the first day, when we onboard a new team member, we ask them, what's your favorite type of candy? What's your favorite sports team? What's your favorite type of smell? What's your favorite color? What's the way that you like to be rewarded? What's your anniversary? What's your birthday? And so we can deliver personalized gifts, thank yous, appreciation. As they have massive impact on our business, we can show that very personalized, to them. Also knowing their personal, professional, and financial goals. When we do our check-ins on a weekly basis with our team members, we can ask them, hey, how's your progress? You said you wanted to pay off your student loans. Hey, you said you wanted to buy a house. You wanted to get married. We can check in on them and show that we care about how they progress, not just in building our business, but in their life and professional development, as well. Now, as you keep scaling and you keep going to the next level, you might have team members that start off as regular CAs. They're doing the front desk, the back office, they're maybe helping with marketing, phone, admin, all different things. But as you start to grow, you want to start transitioning from having jack of all trades to more specialists. And that's one thing that I talk with a lot of doctors. As you start to grow, you need to start realizing that key people should be sitting in key seats based on, like I said, their primary skills, talents, and abilities. And that's going to really empower people to even be more successful. If people love what they do and they're great at it, then they're going to want to sit in that seat all day long. They're going to enjoy coming to work on Monday. They're going to be bummed out when the week is over because they're having fun, they're successful, they love what they do, and they're great at doing it. That's a win-win for them and for you. So identifying that, like I said, from the interview process, after they start working with you, and then having an opportunity for them to grow and scale within your organization. The fourth employee that we ever had is now our number one employee, runs our entire clinic. She's our director of operations, and she started off as $11 an hour part-time hairstylist. And so if you provide the training, you provide the opportunity, and you provide the resources, you can, have people really grow and scale within your organization. You're going to have people that are going to have the opportunity to shine and not feel that they're handcuffed or there's a glass ceiling that they can't get past. And so really one of your top jobs is employee retention, finding great people and retaining great people. One thing we actually do in our clinic is we have a fantastic employee referral program. If any of our employees refer someone that we hire, we actually pay them $5,000 for a full-time hire paid out over a 12-month period, or $1,000 for a part-time hire. So I know I'm going through a lot of information. Post any questions that you have if you're on here live in the Q&A, because these are massive, massive topics, that I'm just skimming the surface on what's possible from a structural standpoint and from a hiring mindset. But the next one I want to jump into is marketing. Obviously, we're on one of the best in the business here with Dr. Kendall and Elevate Marketing. And so what I want to talk about is how my mindset on marketing has been so much different than a typical chiropractor. And I want you guys to have that better framework by the end of this call, so you understand, what are the top things that you need to think and understand about marketing so that you can be successful. The first way I want to talk about marketing is just how to think about marketing. Now, if you put $1,000 into the stock market, and at the end of the year, it turns into $1,500, and you did that every single year for the next 50 years, you would be way smarter than Warren Buffett. You would be the smartest Wall Street investor of all time. You would be in all the books, you'd be on the news, you'd get every interview because you got a 50% return year over year. Now, most doctors that I talk to, if they spend $1,000 on marketing and they make $1,500 in profit, they think, that sucks. That wasn't good. I only got $500. That's terrible, right? And so we have to shift our mindset on how we view marketing. And it's not how much should you spend. It's not how much I spend. It's not how much your friend spends or how much, whoever down the streets or somebody you follow, spends on marketing. None of that matters. It's how much can you spend and still be profitable. And so if you understand your own numbers, then you're going to realize what I just talked about earlier. We have a phenomenal opportunity with the vehicle of chiropractic that we have, with the high profit margins that we have. And so let's just walk through an exercise. If you're on this call with me or you're watching this recording, what's your profit margin? Okay, write that number down. Most doctors that I talk to are somewhere between 30 and 50% profit. Now, if I take out the fringe benefits that you pay yourself of your vacations that you run through the business, your cars, your clothes, your food, a lot of these things, that you're running through because you're running a business, a lot of doctors that adds another 10%, back into their profit margin. Then you maybe go 40, 50, 60, potentially profit margin. Now, if you take that number and divide it by 100, so if it's 50 divided or 100 divided by 50, then you get 2. And that's the minimum return on ad spend, or ROAS, that you need to break even. If you have a 40% profit margin, 100 divided by 40 is 2.5. You need 2.5. If you have a 33% profit margin, 100 divided by 33 is 3. You only need a 3 times return on ad spend to break even. If you have a 20% profit margin, you need a 5 times return on ad spend. So most doctors are somewhere between 30 and 60% profit margin. But typically when I talk to doctors, they've been told, I need to get a 7, 8, 9, 10. One of the biggest numbers when I was coming out of school was everyone said 11x. I don't know where that came from. Dr. Kendall, I don't know if you heard that, but everyone was always saying 11x return on ad spend. That's the number for the chiropractic profession. You got to get 11x. The only reason why you need 11x is if you have like a 9% profit margin. All right. And if you got that bad of a profit margin, we got other issues we need to figure out, we need to work through and dive deeper in and of itself. But for most people, you need somewhere between typically a 2 and 4 return on ad spend to break even. Right now, take it a next level deeper. I talked about LTV, or lifetime value of a customer. If you don't know this data, you need to understand the lifetime value of a client, because this is absolutely going to blow your mind. Let's say what I said earlier, $2,000 to $4,000 lifetime value. Let's just split it in the middle for easy math. $3,000 is the lifetime value of a client. If you have a 50% profit margin, hypothetically, you can spend $1,500 to acquire a new client and you would still break even. If you have a 33% profit margin, you could spend $1,000, you get $3,000 in lifetime value, 33% profit margin, you make $1,000 in profit, you spend $1,000 to acquire that one person, and you still break even. And so most doctors have way, way higher return on ad spend than what I'm talking about. And so if you can put, $1 into a vending machine and it gives you back $3, how many dollars should you put in? As many as you possibly can, until you can't carry any more, right? Until your schedule is 100% full. And I was telling Dr. Kendall about this. I think this is the #1 stat in the entire chiropractic profession that nobody tracks, that everyone should track. It's one of the most important stats in my entire clinic that I track, is what I call percentage of schedule filled. Okay. And so let's walk through this exercise. If you're watching this call, if I were to bring you 1,000 new patients next week, you literally had a line out the door. As soon as you had an opening, someone could come in. Most people tell me their typical day one lasts about 30 minutes. Some people 45, worst case scenario, 60 minutes at the absolute most. Most doctors say their first initial visit, day one, 30 minutes. And if you had a line out the door, 1,000 people just waiting to get in, how many new patients could you process next week? Write that number down. A lot of doctors I talk to, the lowest I usually ever hear is 15. Some doctors say 30 up to 40. If it's taking you 30 minutes an appointment, 40 would take you 20 hours. If you're taking an hour, right, then obviously going to take more. But write that number down. What is that number of new patients? You had a line out the door. How many new patients could you process with your current staff, your current hours, not working anymore? What is that number? Like I said, a lot of doctors say 20 new patients, line out the door. I could get 20 of them through the office, current hours, current staff, don't change anything. Okay. Now, next number is how many new patients are you actually averaging in the last months? Last 6 months, how many new patients are you averaging? Is it 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 a month, whatever that number is? Write that number down. All right. Now let's do some math. 20 is the capacity you said you could do on a weekly basis, whatever your number was. That number times 4.3 weeks in a month. Whatever your number was, 1,000 new patients on the front door on a weekly basis, multiply it, pull out your phones, times 4.3. That is your new patient capacity for a monthly basis. If it's 20 a week times 4.3, that equals 86 new patients that you have the capacity to handle on a monthly basis. Now let's divide it by how many you're actually seeing. Like I said, a lot of doctors tell me they bring in about 20 new patients a month. So in this scenario, it would be 20 divided by 86. So however many patients you are currently bringing in on a monthly basis, divided by the potential of what you have the capacity to see on a monthly basis. In this, my scenario, it's 20 divided by 86. And what I come out to is 23%. And so for that measurement, that means that this office in this hypothetical scenario is filling, percentage of schedule filled is 23%. And I've done this exercise with hundreds of doctors now, and the average is somewhere typically between 20 and 25%. A lot of doctors are much lower, 13, 15%. The highest doctors I've really ever talked to are somewhere between 40 and 50%. And so here's what you need to understand about this. If you have a 100% full schedule of new patients versus a 25% full schedule of new patients, does your rent change? Do your utilities change? Does your electric bill change? Does your payroll change? Do your loans change? Do your vendor payments change? Do 99% of your expenses change at all? No, right? So let's just say easy math, it's 25% for you, whatever your number was. Again, do 100 divided by that number, 100 divided by 25, that is 4x. The average clinic is typically can have 4 to 5 times more revenue than they already are making, with the only expense in this scenario being the cost of the new patient acquisition. So think about whatever your number is for yourself, whatever your revenue was last year, and multiply it by that number. Like I said, for a lot of doctors I do this exercise for, it's typically 4 to 5 times. And so whatever your revenue was last year, what if you could make 5 times the revenue with the exact same staff, the exact same hours, the exact same space, and not working anymore, right? Because those are hours that you already said you had the capacity to process them from what I talked about earlier. And so now we need to understand, okay, now how do I get these new patients? How much can I spend to acquire these new patients? Well, we just talked briefly earlier. If you understand the lifetime value, if you understand your profit margin, then you can understand how much you can hypothetically spend and not lose any money. So in this scenario that I'm using, again, what is your number of your capacity per month? And if you know your lifetime value and your profit margin, earlier what I was saying was $3,000 lifetime value, let's say in this scenario, 50% profit margin, $1,500 that I can spend to acquire a new patient. I can bring in 86 new patients a month. 86 times $1,500 is $129,000 that you could spend on marketing and not lose any money. I've done this exercise with a doctor. He could spend $456,000 on marketing and not lose any money. And so if you understand the framework and the numbers behind this, then your ability to grow and scale and maximize your percentage of schedule filled is just absolutely through the roof. And, if you're first thinking of, okay, that all sounds great, but I don't have a lot of money to begin with, one of the best strategies that I recommend from a marketing standpoint is referrals, reactivations, and re-engagement, of your current leads that you already have on your books. And so referrals is a massive one. Within my own clinic, we typically generate about 30 referrals, sometimes up to 40 referrals a month. And I know that's one of the biggest things that Elevate offers. Kendall, maybe if you can talk a little bit about the referral program and also the reactivation program, because those to me are pretty similar, right? You're trying to get referrals from your current patient base, or you're trying to reactivate previous patients that were under care, notifying them about services that you offer. Maybe you offer new services, maybe you have certain specials. These are already people that maybe know, like, and trust you, have already been services. They've already heard about you, met you at somewhere. I know that is one of the biggest things I have utilized in my marketing strategy, to scale like we have, but I know you guys have some awesome things. So can you talk a little bit about your referral and reactivation protocols with Elevate?
Yeah. So, referrals are, in most practices, it's going to be one of the largest percentages, or at least it should be one of the largest percentages of new patients. I'm always going to be on the digital trend because you can easily put, 50 to 60% of your new patients easily from Facebook. But with referrals, it's people that are already in your practice that already like what you do, and they're talking to their friends about the results that they're getting. And so we've developed unique systems because it boils down to what you were talking about earlier. There's no systems that people have put together in their office, right? They go on an Excel spreadsheet, or they go into a file cabinet, and when there's downtime, then they start making calls. And so we have these amazing softwares like Go High Level, and a lot of the different CRMs that have the ability to be able to put these people into nurture sequences, to where if a patient gives you a referral, it puts them right into the system and starts following up with them in a manner to be able to help get that person in the office and ultimately convert to a new patient, right? Systems drive the results, right?
Well, what did I just talk about, Kendall, is one of the biggest expense you're ever going to have is your team. And team is a massive, massive expense, right? We want to view them as assets. We want to view them, as income producing assets, not liabilities. But at the end of the day, they cost the most money. And so if you can implement a system and have automation to generate referrals and reactivations and generate your old leads and continually educate them on what you're doing, what is kind of your sequences that you recommend, to keep those old leads, those people top of mind, so that they are more likely to reactivate?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the office that we're working with and kind of how they're doing it. But consistent follow-up is one of the things that we find is a major large scale problem with almost every office that we work with. They're not following up with the leads that are there enough. And so, that's where, someone who drops off of care, in the summer because baseball gets in full swing or whatever it may be, it's like, what are you doing to continue to reach out to them? And that's where reactivation campaigns on a consistent basis, every 30, 60, 90 days, to get those people back in the doors and just have a touch point, because it's not that they dislike your service. It's not that they dislike you. It's just that it wasn't their priority at that time. And so if you're consistently doing things to reach out to them, you can bring that back up the priority list, right? We've implemented, because when it comes to digital marketing agencies, there's a lot of good ones out there, right? I'm not going to tell you that we're the best and we run ads better than everybody, because the reality is that component of it, there is tweaks and things that we can do to improve performance. but it's more about the things that are built on the back end to be able to get people in the doors, right? So we just implemented this new re-engagement campaign with some of our offices. And what we found is that majority of our clients beyond the first week, they are not doing anything to follow up with their leads. And so we've created automated systems. What the research and what the numbers are telling us based on the offices in this study is that we're getting 50% of leads, because I always give the analogy that if 100 leads come into your funnel, typically about 50 of them are going to schedule, right? So 50% will schedule, and then 50% of those that scheduled are going to show.
Okay.
That's a
About
large
25%
percentage.
show up.
Yeah, so that's a large percentage of people that are still in that funnel. The question is what are you doing with them, right? And so as we've created these nurture sequences for these offices, what we found is that of those 50% that never booked, right, of the 100, we're getting 50%, so 25% of the overall to book an appointment. Beyond that, that 25% that didn't show up for their appointment, we're getting 17% of that portion to book back in if they didn't show for that first visit. And so the difference between offices that succeed and those that don't succeed is what does the follow-up look like and what's happening on the back end to be able to get those people in the door.
Well, I know when I first opened, I only had a few team members. Nobody wants to follow up with a lead on the weekend. They're only working, during the week, during your office hours, but then a lead comes in and they're at the front desk, they're in the back office, they can't follow up with a lead. So, I mean, to me, that's probably one of, if not the most valuable part of your entire service, is that you have a call center, that answers the phone and follows up with leads 6 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it's the simple fact that we can use automations and we can use auto dialers in our software to be able to call multiple people at one time to where when someone picks up, it hangs up the other ones and then just answers that. And so we have the ability to just scale and scale and scale. And so what we found from a numbers perspective is that, when we run ads where someone is scheduling direct to calendar, we're seeing that 50% of the people who do not schedule automatically, or they don't schedule within, Facebook or on a landing page, we're actually seeing that 50% of those people are scheduling with our call center. And that's just due to the fact that we beat people on I will never claim that they're going to be better than your CA at telling the mission and the purpose and the passion of your office, because that's a very unique thing to an office. But what I will say is that they understand chiropractic and they understand some of the niches that are within chiropractic, whether it be soft wave or neuropathy or whatever it may be, decompression. Like they have a basic understanding of those things to be able to have intelligent conversations, so that way they can be able to get people in the office. And so, the biggest part about this is that they're going to follow up more consistently and in a more systemized manner than most offices are ever able to do. And that's where we're really seeing the results with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're talking about is what has always been one of my biggest frustrations with marketing companies, is just the quality of what they do. Something most of the marketing companies that I've worked with over the years is they're like great on the front end. You get a bunch of leads and then all of a sudden things are dying and you got to send them a message and say, hey, stuff aren't working. And then all of a sudden you get a big uptick, and then it's just like, and then it goes back down. You're like, hey, it's not working. You're constantly managing them and you're paying all this money. A lot of clinic doctors are charging, these marketing companies are charging $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month just in management before you even get to ad spend. And so that's one of the biggest things I really loved about Elevate is just like the quality of content. I know you have like 2, 3 full-time in-house editors that are just constantly creating new content and making it and doing market research for your own area. So it's individualized to who your audience is, what your ideal client is, and then constantly changing out the copy and the video. So it's always fresh, because that's something that I've always really been frustrated with most other marketing companies I work with.
And that's something that was really intentional in what we did, because, I I worked with like 5 different agencies before I started this company with my business partner. And the biggest frustration for me is that everybody out of the gate was like 1,500 in ad spend, 1,500 in ad spend. And it's like, how do you know that number? Right? That was always my question. Why is everybody 1,500? And so like we do market research on the area because here's the reality. Little Rock, Arkansas, Des Moines, Iowa, and downtown Chicago are all going to have very, very different demographics. They're all going to have very, very different marketing needs, right? What offer you run, what ad it is. Are you doing videos? Are you doing static images? And so that's where our marketing consultants are they're masters of this stuff, right? They understand what happens in markets to be able to create really, really good relationships, right? And so we really try and pride ourselves on the fact that we're going to continue to meet with people, with our clients on a regular basis so we can be able to stay in the loop, right? Our goal is that we become part of your team, right? That we are part of the team of Vero helping you grow along the way. And so that, like you said, I mean, we have in-house video editors. Fun little fact, most marketing agencies outsource all of that stuff. It's not who you're dealing with that's actually doing that. And so we do that in-house so that way we can take that in.
So you're paying them $1,500 a month, and they're just hiring some VA or someone on Fiverr for $5 an hour to make some generic content that every clinic is using.
And that's the reason why you see stuff coming back looking very, very similar in a lot of cases. And so,
I didn't realize that. Wow.
We have a large process within our office or within our company to be able to take the content that is there, be able to take A and B roll, create really, really attractive looking ads, because in the world that we're living in, 5 years ago, you could throw just about anything up and it probably would have gotten new patients. But the content has to be that much better now in order to get patients in the door because they're looking at those things. And so you've got to draw attention to those ads, and the creative and the ad copy is the thing that's doing that.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things I always talk about, you talk about lead conversion. And one of the biggest things, from a marketing standpoint, people are always talking about is quality of leads. And one of the biggest things I realized early on is I've always gotten much better quality leads from Google, because, on Facebook, you're just scrolling, watching a cat video, learning about, some random political post your mother-in-law, reposted, and then bang, all of a sudden you got some chiropractor snapping a neck.
Are you on my Facebook feed? Because I think you are.
and then bam, an ad pops up. Whereas Google ads, they have to actually physically search. And that's one of our biggest things for marketing, over the years has been Google ads, because people are proactively searching. You're getting much higher quality there that's already searching chiropractor near me, or, back pain or neck pain or whatever that search term is. And, most generic social media marketing companies don't also understand SEO. And to me, I've always loved SEO and Google ads because, like I said, the quality of the people that come in, and especially if you do a good job of generating reviews in your office, then your SEO and your Google ads, function even better.
Yeah, I mean, it's your digital landscape, right? It's your digital content. It's something that lives online, rent free, basically. What is crazy, I always talk when it comes to what you're talking about in quality of, it's like a referral is always going to be the person who starts care most frequently, right? It's like, you're broke, I'll fix it, get on the table, right? Second is going to be a Google, or someone who comes from maybe a talk or a screening or something like that because you've had the chance to interact. But then it's Google and Facebook, right? And so they should all work together, especially when we're talking about Facebook and Google, because Facebook should really drive them to start looking at you. But then when they go and Google you and then they see that, oh, hey, they are showing up here in the search and they've got 200 5-star reviews, like maybe this is the office. And so, we are never, as a profession, we're never going to compete on an SEO perspective for, like a national brand is going to. And truth be told, we don't want to. But a lot of the SEO companies that are within the chiropractic space are really driving things towards a national brand. And you need to be making that a very hyper local SEO, right? Doing things to really optimize the Google business profile, doing things to optimize the headlines and the tags, and doing the things that we need to a website that's going to drive people, not just for traffic. I mean, traffic is important, but driving people to actually generate leads, right? And so our average client who is running SEO services with us, and this is no ad spend. This is just SEO, not even talking Google ads.
Oh,
Is
this is
typically,
okay. Yeah. So that's what you were saying. Doesn't
yeah,
cost any money.
yeah. I mean, it's the service fee for us to get in and do the work on your website, right? It's generating somewhere between 15 and 25 new leads a month. And those are people who are looking for you, right? And so they're a much better quality of patient that's going to come in, very, very similar to what a Google ad is going to produce. And so having a strategy, there's a scalability factor to it, to where it's only going to scale to a certain amount. But at the same time, like, if you got, even say half of the 20 came in, 10 people came in, most offices are doing like a 10 to 1, 15 to 1, 20 to 1 ROI on those patients. And so it's just one more medium to be able to scale in your practice, to be able to drive even more new patients in the door.
And that's perfectly ties in with what I said earlier. I think, like I said, percentage of schedule filled. If you guys are watching this call, that you have to start tracking it. And it's not just for new patients. I know we're focusing on new patients and marketing because that's such a massive part of our business, but you need to know percentage of schedule filled for your adjustments. You need to know percentage of schedule filled for your decompression, for soft wave, for any type of appointment type in your office. And then if you understand your return on ad spend, you understand your lifetime value, you understand your profit margin, then you say, wow, I need to get this thing filled up, because you just said people are getting, 10 to 15 return on your SEO strategy. Well, like I said earlier, unless you have a I don't even know what that math is on that, 7 to 9% profit margin.
Yeah.
So that's the only way you're not going to make money with that return on ad spend. And so what do you want to do? Well, you want to just, if you can put $1 in and get $15 out, you can put $1 in and get $10 out. You want to put as many dollars in, until your schedule is filled. And that goes, like I said, percentage of schedule filled. You guys got to start tracking this. Like I said, I've never met a doctor that I've told about the stat that's tracked the stat. I've never met a single one. And it's like, once, I didn't track it to begin with. This is something I learned, just over the years when I was trying to figure out. It's like, okay, I got these team members. They're working, their job is to do day ones. These doctors' job is to see adjustments. And then, based on how many people I brought in, I had team members that were like, oh, we're working too hard. We're working too this many of that. And I said, oh, really? Like, let me see what percentage of your schedule is filled. And that's actually how I first started tracking it, because, when I was adjusting, I got up to, 500 patients a week, by myself and doing all these other things. And then I had, doctors that say, oh, I can't adjust more than 200 patients. And I'm like, okay, well, how many minutes does it take you for an adjustment? How many hours are you working? All right, you can totally do that. Same exact thing for my other team members for those other appointment types. Hey, we have a decompression machine. It takes 15 minutes a session. We're open for 20, hours a week. That's 80 sessions a week that we have already paid for the machine, and we have a team member to staff it. And so it was honestly a mind-blowing, conception, for me from that standpoint. But that's where marketing to me is, if you understand that statistic, then investing into quality, utilizing Elevate, somebody that does the market research. What I think in our chiropractic profession, there's so many marketing companies that I call, they're like chop shops. It's just like there are a dime a dozen. There's these guys that, are 17 years old, 19 years old, 23 years old. You guys all get the Facebook messages from, like I do, that, that want you to market with them and spend X amounts, and it's copy and paste. And like Dr. Kendall said, I mean, that's the biggest thing that, I've realized is, like, marketing is always evolving. It's always changing. What worked 5 years ago does not work now. And that's not something that I have the time to keep up with all the structure that I have. I can't keep up with, I still can't keep up with that. There's no way anybody can keep up with it. So that's always been my biggest recommendation. I've said, don't build your own website, don't do your own ads, don't do these things that there's experts. Like, we didn't go to school, to do those things. We need to have experts, right? And so, that's why I think, Elevate is such a no-brainer, for me, of all the different things that you do. You're not just setting an ad, setting and forgetting it, hey, and someone updating it. You have a call center, you're doing SEO, you're doing re-engagement, you're doing referrals, you're doing reactivations, you're constantly updating the ads, you have full-time editors, that are doing all these things. And so when you understand marketing and you understand the return on ad spend and how much less you actually need on return on ad spend to still be profitable, then it just comes down to a math equation of how many patients can you bring in on a monthly basis? What's your lifetime value and profit margin? And therefore, how much can you spend and still be profitable? Because like I said, you have all the expenses, whether you have 100% full schedule or a 50% full schedule, or like most people, a 20 to 25% full schedule. And so I think, that's just the biggest frame of mind. That's just like, it's really revolutionized how fast I grew. Like I said, I had the structure and the framework. I need the team to implement it, but I can have the best structure in the world, I have the best team in the world. But if I don't have the people coming through the front door, then none of that's going to matter. So it's like, I always compare, it's like you have the Ferrari, you got the Lamborghini, but you got no gas in the engine. That's what marketing is. But you just have, but people are scared because it's like, oh, I got to spend this much. The leads are this ball, X, Y, and Z. But again, if you understand lifetime value and profit margin, then it's not risky. It's very safe with high return.
Well, to that point, when I sold my practice at the beginning of this year, and when we were going through the valuation process, the guy who was valuing my practice, he looked at it and he said, "You spend more money in marketing than any practice I've ever looked at, ever." And he said, "Can you explain that?" And I said, "I'm constantly testing, right? I'm constantly testing things because it's the marketing mindset." It kind of goes back to the conversation you were talking about with the billionaire earlier. The conversation that we need to be having around marketing is, what is our risk tolerance to be able to try things with marketing? Because you don't know if it's going to work until you try it. And that is where a lot of people are scared to spend money, because at the end of the day, you either made a lot of money or you learned something from it. You learned what didn't work, and you can go back to the drawing board and make sure, well, we've checked that off the list and we can now do this, that, or the other to be able to get the best results. And that's the end goal, right? Is to put a little bit out and risk more than probably what you're comfortable with, but that's where growth truly happens. And so that's where for me, I think that there's a massive, massive benefit.
But that's the thing, is like, when I was just breaking those numbers down on that basic example with low lifetime value, and I think what did I say it was, at 1,500 times 86, $129,000 that can be spent on marketing. It's not, people think it's this big risk. People think there's this big concern of trying this or doing that. If you track that data, if you actually know your numbers, it's not a big risk. It's like I said earlier, that investing analogy. It's like, you either invest in the stock market and you invest in stocks and bonds and savings account, they're low risk, low reward, right? Or you invest in high risk, high reward. If you ever talk with a financial advisor, they're like, what's your risk tolerance? Are you a 0? Are you a 5? Do you want me to put it at a 3, 4, diverse? How do you want to, what's your mix, of risk, right? And so I think for the chiropractic profession, that's the crazy thing, is with the profit margins that we have. What did I just say earlier? Me adjusting 500 patients a week versus me adjusting 100 patients a week, that costed no more money. Like, to make 5 times the revenue with 0 additional expenses, like, that's the difference in our profession. It's like, if you see, 5 times more volume, usually in most businesses, there's 5 times more expenses. If, again, that's why percentage of schedule filled is so vital with everything, because if you understand your capacity, if you're not hitting your capacity with percentage of schedule filled, then you are just leaving revenue on the table, but you're still paying for 100% of the expenses. And so I just can't beat this horse dead enough, because it's just, the framework behind that is just, it's so, to me, I've realized it's so basic. And, if you understand those data points, then like I said earlier, you can have a low risk and high reward simultaneously, from an investing standpoint. And so that's really given me so much more confidence, to implement all the different strategies like you talked about with the referral, the reactivation, the SEO, call center, all these things, because I know my profit margin, I know my lifetime value. I just need to fill up my schedule. I'm already paying my staff. I'm already paying my rent. I'm already having all these expenses. Like that's the number one way to make more money, because that's just pure profit. Like that's just pure profit when you have no additional expenses and you have more revenue coming in.
Did anybody get amazing value out of tonight? Like I was taking notes. I've got a page full of notes myself just for things that that I think need to be implemented. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. So Dr. Josiah, if anyone wants to reach out and they want to talk with you, what is the best way for them to be able to contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. I will post my link um, in the chat for anybody. Just morelucro.com. You can book a call, with me, one-on-one. Our whole premise for our company is we do your bookkeeping, but you give insights into your numbers of how you can actually grow, how you can evaluate your data. And like I said, that's the biggest thing that is most freeing for me to be able to grow, to be able to scale, is if I understand my numbers, then I can make these decisions that sound risky or seem, like a tough decision. But if you understand the data behind it, then low risk, high reward.
Yeah. And so, as a bonus for anyone who is not already a client of Elevate's, one of the things that we're doing for any office that's on this call or is watching the recording is if they click the link that Dr. Josiah already put in, we're going to give you $1,000 off your first month with Elevate, just as a thank you for showing up and being on the call. So hang around for just a minute. And we'll go ahead and get started with the Q&A. But Dr. Josiah, thank you so much for being on and helping to clear up some of these things. I know we've already got some questions coming in. So just hang on real tight and we'll get those started.
Yeah, thanks for having me.